Hi, I'm Abhishek Goindi, won the first Indian Poker Player of the Year award, co-founder Poker Bootcamp India, also brand ambassador for PokerBazi. And today I'm going to be answering a few questions about poker put together by the folks at Answered. What is poker? Poker for me is a game of life. Everything that you see in life, you can see on a poker table, and I think you can learn way faster. And it's a beautiful mix of trading and chess, in my opinion, because it's got the strategy from chess, and it's got the money management and the psychology from trading, and it's also got some missing variables, like life. So I think it's a beautiful mix of life, trading, and chess. All right, next question for me. How important is bluffing in poker, and how do you effectively do it? I think bluffing is supremely important. However, most poker players don't bluff too much. They're actually very honest poker players with a little bit of bluffs, like how you have in life. When you're an honest person, you can slide in the bluff every now and then. But when you're dishonest, your bluffs are going to get caught very often. Similarly in poker. You usually don't bluff as often, but if you sense weakness, if you sense that your opponent is actually not too strong, that's when you apply the pressure. That's when you go for the bluff. And most people don't really understand this though. So you wait for your opponent to be weak, and then you attack. What are the most common mistakes beginners make in poker? Just start managing their bankroll, playing way outside their limits. So what tends to happen is they don't understand the amount they have to be investing in each game. And then suddenly, boom, they're broke. Suddenly they think it's gambling. Suddenly they don't trust the websites. That's probably one of the most common mistakes I see. Apart from that, what I understand is people don't understand in poker that lesser number of players you're playing against in a hand or on a table, the more your chances of winning are. So when you have 8 people sitting on a table, most likely people, when they pick up a hand like pocket aces, they're like, hey, I want many people to come in because I'll make more money. But they don't understand that when many people are in the hand, your chances of winning actually goes down. So you're actually going to make more money by increasing the size of the bet in the pot and reducing the number of people that come in. So you want just 1 or 2 people to come in and then you play against them. So this is one of the psychological errors I see a lot of people make in poker. How do positions and table dynamics affect poker strategy? Almost always. Position is exactly like how people keep saying location in real estate. It's so important, you can't take your eyes away from it. You have to play it all the time. You have to be in position all the time. And table dynamics is very important because you want to know what kind of mood your opponent is and you want to kind of know what he's doing. You kind of want to understand what his strategy is so that you can basically use that to counter it. Similar to any sport. If the bowler is going to be bowling bouncers to you and setting the field up for you to get caught in deep mid wicket or like deep square leg, then you got to adjust to that strategy, and that's the meta or that's the dynamic. So similarly in poker, you have a lot of these dynamics, and you kind of have to figure out how to counter them, and especially when you play in position. Is poker more about luck or skill? It's a beautiful combination of both luck and skill. I don't think anything in life has just luck or skill. I think there's always an element of luck and element of skill in anything that you do. And I always say this to people, in any game where you can lose intentionally, makes it a lot of skill. And in poker, you can lose intentionally. Think about it. You can't lose intentionally in a coin flip. You can't lose intentionally in a roll of a dice. You can't lose intentionally in roulette, but you can lose intentionally in poker. So there's a lot of skill involved according to me. How do professional players calculate odds and outs so quickly? Just like how any kid calculates 2 into 2, 4 or 4 into 4, 16. You just kind of get used to it. There's simple formulas, super simple shortcuts. If you want to learn that, then you just come to the Poker Bootcamp India. I can't reveal everything. What are some of the general poker tells? I love this one because some of the most common tells in poker is understanding when a person has a strong hand. So when you're playing live poker and you see someone look at their cards and then quickly glance at their chips and then look back at their cards and then continue playing or continue picking up the action, it's almost always a strong hand. Unless this guy is manipulating it, and that you can figure out. But if it's a genuine look, more often than not, it's a strong hand or a hand that he's really interested in playing. Psychology works in such a way and your eyes don't lie, which is why a lot of people actually wear shades so that you don't give away this information if you can't control how your eyes are. And the pros, they're very good at controlling this. But there's some pros who don't realize because there's so many things that you have to control that organically sometimes what happens is you look at the hand, you look at your stack and you continue playing. So that always tells me that you have a hand that you're interested in playing. And the other tell which I've noticed on the poker table, which really works with amateurs especially, is when they're in a draw or they don't really have a very strong hand or they're chasing something, they'll often shuffle their cards on the table. They'll often just keep moving it between the two, or they'll often be they'll have a finger on their cards and they'll just be tapping it, or they'll just keep shuffling it up and down. That usually indicates to me that they're not very strong and that they're looking to basically chase the draw that they're actually chasing. These are 2 of the common tells for me in live poker at least. Why do casino dealers tap the table when they're given a tip? win, lose a hand or flop a card. This is actually very interesting because the cameras all over the casino, and they kind of just showcasing it to the surveillance that this is what they've got. And they always showcase their hand so that they make sure that they're not really flicking any chips, or they make sure that there's no chips stuck in their hand. It's all for surveillance. So they have, it's eyes in the sky, like they say in the casino. So they always open up their hand to show the casino that, hey, I don't have any chips, I've not flicked any chips, I've not really taken anyone's stack, and then they move on. When should you fold a strong hand like top pair or an overpair? This is a little more technical, but you should fold the top pair or an overpair when the board changes a lot, So if, let's say you have a hand like ace 10, let's say the flop comes at 8, 9, 10. So you have ace 10, which is technically top pair. But let's say the turn comes at 6, you still have top pair. But if someone has like a jack or a 5, they're going to make a straight and just whoop your ass, right? And someone else can have 2 pairs, someone else can have a set. So when your hand becomes very vulnerable is when you basically want to be folding top pairs, and especially when the board is very wet or when the board changes. So you might have aces and the flop might come 5, 6, 7, the turn might come an 8, and there might be 4 clubs, and you might have 2 black aces. So you don't really have any connectivity with the board. When the strength of your hand is actually good, but the way the board interacts with your hand is not as good, is when you actually fold top pairs and overpairs. What are the biggest differences between playing online poker and live poker? I can play in my boxers, firstly, when I'm playing online poker, which I can't do more often than not when I'm playing live poker. I can just be chilling in my room. That's a big plus. Apart from that, I can't see a person's face when I'm playing online poker. And the game speeds are very different because online poker, you have the computer doing everything for you, from shuffling, putting in chips, awarding the pot. So the number of hands you see online is like 50 to 60 hands an hour. But in live poker, you have a dealer, you have like people, they take time. So the game is way slower when you play live, right? You're playing like 15 hands an hour, 20 hands an hour, because you got the dealers shuffling their cards, you got people taking time. There's no shot clock for most part, in the sense they can take more time to make their decisions. But in online poker, people they've given a shot clock, so you kind of have to make a decision in a stipulated amount of time. So it's way faster. And more importantly, online, you can play multiple tables. I can just load up like 4 or 5 screens at a time and I can just be playing multiple tables. In live poker, that's very tough, right? You can't be jumping around from like table A to table B. You kind of have to be stuck on your seat playing one table. So I think these are some of the biggest differences between live poker and online poker. How do you spot and exploit weak players at the table? Again, a little technical, but it's a lot to do with their gameplay. It's a lot to do with the kind of moves they're making on the table. It's a lot to do with the thought process that they have on the table. And sometimes, you can just tell based on their playing style, like any other sport. When you see a footballer playing, you know if he's good or bad when you've played long enough. So similarly, when a poker player is playing, you know if he's good or bad just by the amount of, like the sizing of the bets, by the way he folds his cards, by the way he calls for the chips, by the kind of bets he's making, and by the kind of strategy he takes on different kind of situations. You can kind of tell if he's good or bad. What are some of the craziest or most legendary hands in poker history? Actually, I remember this hand where 2 people had aces, they were both all in, and one guy lost. And it's not because they had aces and one guy lost. That happens. But it happened in $1 million buy-in event, where the buy-in was $1 million, right? So for you to get brutally beaten like that in such a big event, I think is probably one of the hands that probably went down as the most unluckiest hand or the biggest cooler in poker history, according to me. Okay, so as a professional poker player, have you ever sat down at low stakes thinking you're going to clean up only to get schooled by some amateurs? As a professional poker player, I think that a lot, but whenever I think that a lot and I sit down to school some people, what ends up happening is I end up schooling myself rather than getting schooled by them, because I just use the wrong strategies. So you kind of have to be level-headed, and you kind of have to be very grounded in any kind of game that you're playing, or any kind of stakes that you're playing, right? At the end of the day, it's still a game. So you want to go out there and use your best strategy. So when you go out there just to try to figure out what's the strategy that's going to be beating your opponents in this particular situation, you'll end up schooling them. But if you go in there with like ego and entitlement, you'll school yourself more often than not. So it's happened, but cut to today, I don't think that happens anymore. How can I play poker professionally in India? I would say just gotta quit your job. Just treat this like your new job. Have fun playing poker. Set aside some money so that you know exactly how much you're going to be investing in the game. Have a plan, have a roadmap as to how you're going to be allocating this money towards what kind of games. Hire a coach or find a community, like I keep saying, Poker Bootcamp India, because you want to have like-minded people who can actually help you accelerate this growth. You will learn from people and peers around you. And that's what I did all my life too. Like any other sport, you don't want to be the smartest or the best in the room. So you kind of want to learn from people who are better than you, who've been there, done that, so that you minimize your mistakes, so that your journey is faster. Just always make sure you're tracking exactly what you're doing, and also pay attention to your fitness. A lot of people usually don't pay attention to their fitness in poker because they think, hey, I've got to be sitting on a table for like 10, 12 hours. Why do I need to be fit? On the contrary, to sit for like 10 to 14 hours and have like a high level of focus and make good decisions when there's a lot of money involved, you need to be physically fit. So I would say just get all of these aspects in. Start slow, start low, and then slowly climb up. Just be patient and everything will work out. I sucked at maths in school. Do I really needed to play poker? I would say you need a little bit of math, like you can't avoid it completely. But it's not as crazy as you saw in the movie Hangover, where these graphs are going all over his face and stuff. You can always play with basic math. Obviously, having math on your side or understanding math will definitely help you get even better. But you can always play poker with just knowing basic math. Have fun with it and learn all the shortcuts that come with the game. So I get asked this question a lot. How do I manage my tilt in poker? Managing tilt is super important because as soon as your emotions get in the way, your logical brain goes out of the way. And you're going to lose a lot of money, and I've seen people go broke overnight, lose like lakhs of rupees because they're just not thinking straight. They're not thinking about the situation. And there's a very popular book by Jared Tendler called The Mental Game of Poker, and he describes the 7 different types of tilt that there are. And if you read that book, you'll kind of understand how you can correlate exactly what you are going through with how you feel on the table, and then you can kind of put your triggers in place and you can kind of understand how to overcome it. And different people have different kinds of tilt. You kind of have to understand which tilt you're going through and then figure out how to overcome it. How do I tell my parents or family that I'm playing poker? Just go out there and tell them, man, if you love what you're doing and you know what you're doing and you're actually putting the efforts to play the game and not just gambling away your money, I think there's nothing to be worried about. Just go out there and be open because it's going to free your mind. You're going to be feeling a lot lighter and you'll be able to focus on the game. And that's what I did. I just went out there and then I put in the efforts and then the results followed. And then once the results follow, your folks are going to be like, or your family members are going to be like, all right, do what you're doing. And it's going to take some time. You got to put in the effort because once they see you putting in the effort and once they see that the results are actually following through and the moolah is coming home, I don't think anyone's parents are going to be like, hey, don't play that. Man, I loved my time here today at Answered. I realized that when I was growing up, I needed a community and a bunch of people to kind of get better at the game, and I found it globally, but I never saw it in India. So then I realized that, hey, we need that community in India. We need that support system in India. We need to educate people and create awareness to position poker as a sport, which is how it is globally. And that's when I set up the Poker Bootcamp India, just before COVID in 2019. And now we've built a beautiful community online as well, where everyone's actually supporting. And when you're running deep in a tournament and you see everyone supporting you, you have this huge rail, people are texting you, people are watching. It feels really good and it feels like a proper sport because it's become like a spectator sport within the community as well. So if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram, Goindi, that's my name, or just Google me, or just search for Indian Player Poker.